Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, all. Both on.
Just getting us set up here, both on Instagram and Facebook. So good morning, all, on Facebook currently. Get ourselves set up here. Good morning, all. Just wait for a few to hop on for this morning. Good morning. Morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Nice to see everyone this morning. Good morning, all. So continuing this morning where we've left off in the last few days with our Dinacharya. Good morning. Hello, namaste. Happy to see everyone again this morning. And impressed to see everyone on a Saturday morning. Someone was writing and asking last night whether or not we would continue on Saturday and Sunday. So just as a reminder, tomorrow, Sunday, we will have a break. But today we continue where we've left off. Good morning. So this morning we are continuing with, we have two more of the sense organs, we could say, that we haven't yet touched on. I'm sorry to those on Instagram. I'm really not sure why we're pausing. So we're going to continue, but if you pause, just know that that you're coming right back on. That's the hope and the intention. So continuing, we have two more. It's really pausing a lot. Okay, I'm going to try and change that. Just stay there for a second on Instagram. I'm going to try and change the connection. Okay, all on Instagram. I think this should be better. I've changed the connection that we're tapped into. So here's hoping. Okay, good morning. Good morning, Yash. Good morning, everyone. So two more senses that we haven't touched on yet, and that is the sense of touch, so in through the skin and touch, and also hearing and the ears. So thus far in our morning ritual, in our morning rituals, in our morning practices, we have worked on the mouth, the nose, and the eyes, right? So we've worked through those three. And so from here, today, I want to focus on the skin. So what's suggested in Ayurvedic Dinacharya, in these daily practices, to do on the skin. So the skin relates to which element? So we talked about that last week. The skin relates to the air element. And in that way, if our relationship through the skin to all of life is balanced, then we'll notice that the air element will be flowing freely on every level. So it's similar to what we talked about with the other elements. So it means that physically it'll be balanced, but also it'll be balanced energetically, emotionally, mentally. And so the air contributes to mobility, movement in the structure. So everything that requires mobility. So we can say the movement of, for example, the air, breath, the fact that it moves, the movement of thought, that thought has the capacity to move, the movement of, think of peristalsis, or the movement of digestion, even the fact that digestion needs a certain churning of the air, the movement of the blood in the veins, general movement, right? So even the fact that I'm talking with my hands and speaking to all of you, or even the movement of the speech, the thoughts turning into speech, right? So all of that is coming from movement. It's a certain mobility aspect. And so the air element contributes to all of those things happening within us. And if this isn't harmonious, then we might see that the air element doesn't flow necessarily in these ways. And so we start to notice that there are problems in one of those movement actions that I've just outlined. So maybe there's a problem in the movement of the stool, maybe there's a problem in general movement of the body, right? So the impulse to move. Maybe there's a problem in the movement of the air or the movement of the blood, or the movement of the thoughts, right? If we don't have air, the air element in the brain, then the movements get kind of stuck, or rather the thoughts get kind of stuck, sluggish. The capacity of the synapses to really move and keep everything moving will be sort of frozen, we could say. So the air element is really, as you can see, physiologically necessary. That's how we understand it in Ayurveda. Then at a more emotional, psychological level, the air element contributes to qualities of being uplifted, but also being flowing, mobile, we could say, in our state of being. So being a little bit more flexible, being like the air, the capacity to move with things, right? So to move, to be more light about things. With the air, it means we don't get as stuck. If we don't have air in our consciousness, in our state of mind, then we notice that we get a bit of rigidity, stubbornness, stuckness, resentment, all those kinds of qualities. The air allows us to be light. And it also allows us to be uplifted. So there's a certain upliftment with it, a general sense of lightness in how we come to life. So those of us who have a healthy amount of air, things move through us without getting too stuck. So a situation happens or something occurs and it doesn't stick to the personal so much. So we're able to move through it with lightness, with an airiness. The airiness just generally contributes to that sort of mobility with things, malleability with things, flexibility, we could say, in many ways with things. And it also contributes to a certain amount of inspiration. The air can provide inspiration, a certain artistic quality, because it provides the capacity to see things out in the air, to see things not just what's here now, to not get so stuck in our old perspectives of how things might have been. So the air element is, of course, another one of the necessities of what it is to be alive in the microcosmic form. And as we've been discussing since the beginning with Dinacharya, all of these different daily rituals help us to recognize our interconnectedness and to live into all of these 5 elements. They allow us to feel our completion. If we just have 1 or 2 of the elements more predominant, which there tends to be a ratio in the way in which we're born into this life. But if we're really missing a relationship with one or another of these elements, then we might start to notice that we feel a bit partial. It's like we're limping, right? We're not so connected or flowing in all of the elements. So having the elements in balance in our system, we start to notice some more fullness in the way in which we express our structure, the way in which we express what we could call our microcosmic, that we're a little universe here. And so all of the physiological attributes or all the physiological processes that need to be occurring are occurring in healthfulness, are occurring in a certain ease. And at the same time, all of the emotional, mental, let's say landscape is available to us, but we don't get stuck in one or another. See, this is the beauty. When all of the elements are here, we know that there's a rich and deep landscape of emotional and mental fabric. But if we're really partial, like really more stuck, have more of a tendency to get stuck in one element or another, they're not all flowing freely, harmoniously, then we'll tend to always go to the same tendencies, to really in many ways get rigid in one or another tendency. This is what, on some level, we might call our karmic propensities or our samskaras, that we have these tendencies that we're born with, and they're usually born of one element or another, and that we get rigid there, that we keep, cycling in cycles of suffering around those tendencies. So today, the air element, and what you can see a lot of times when you start working with these elements is you start to notice the way in which when that relationship with the element is improved or more free-flowing, then you start to notice, oh, okay, I'm living into the reality of what it is to be in human form and humanness in a different way. Like you just might feel a little bit different. So the air element also corresponds to what we call the heart chakra, Anahata chakra. So in that way, it also allows us to have this expansive connection with all of life, which allows that sense of interconnectedness, unconditional love, a certain compassion and empathy for the space and other beings around us. And so you might notice that touch, the aspect of touch, and as the air element increases, you feel more touched at the heart as well. So in your daily life, you're a more touched, heartful individual. And that's really where the practices become, for today, the practices that we're going to talk about and I'm going to share with you, become a real boon to so many people. They become such a blessing because I'll have many individuals who will share with me, after I started doing these practices, Tiffany, I really felt touched because it's work to all of life and to other beings as well. And I feel more of the sense of love for others, like a reaching out, a recognition of interconnectedness with all beings, but also a sense of love as well for myself, self-love. I so often hear this with these practices, a feeling of self-love, a feeling of true self-love with a capital S, like an appreciation for being alive. I'm touched. So the two practices today, the two Dinacharya rituals today, involve working on the skin. Yeah, Ramin is saying that he follows me much better on Facebook than Instagram. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. It's the same connection, and I don't know why. I have you on Facebook on my computer and Instagram on the phone, but yeah, so if some of you feel to switch over to Facebook, then hop on there. And I've been noticing that some of you have been doing that because you've been finding that the connection is a little bit better there. Yeah, I think it's when I'm in the bathroom, it's a little bit more difficult with the phone, but when we're out in the space for meditation and yoga, then it seems to be working okay for the phone. So these two practices, what are they? These two rituals. The first one is what we call Garshana, which is dry brushing. So this is one way we can dry brush. There are a few ways we can dry brush. Actually, in the tradition and in Ashtanga Hridayam, they talk about a practice called Udvartanam, which is actually using a powder to dry brush. So you use a specific herbal powder on the body, and then that's used to dry brush the body. But this, something like this, is another way we can dry brush. So we're going to talk about that. And then the second practice for today is what we call Abhyanga or Snehana. Abhyanga means to give oil to the body. So oiling all of the skin, oiling the body. So let's start firstly with this one. Just as we discussed yesterday, depending upon your constitution and depending upon what's happening for you, happening with you, we might choose to do one and not the other, and we might choose to only occasionally combine the two. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that we all do both of these every day. In fact, I'm not suggesting that. Let's think of the qualities, and this is what we discuss more and more. You know, we go more in depth with these kinds of understandings in, for example, my Ayurvedic online program or in the teacher training. But if we think of the qualities of our skin and we think of what this would do to the skin, it becomes quite commonsensical. So for example, if you think if your skin is oily, your skin is thicker, oily, it has a density to it, and you were to use something to brush on the skin, then you would think, okay, that'll lighten it, it will decrease the oil, it'll also open the density of the skin, right? Whereas if your skin, for example, is dealing with dryness, so especially in a season like winter, if your skin is dry, if it tends to crack, if you tend to feel like it's flaky, and then you do something like this every day, what's going to happen? It's going to increase the dryness, it's going to increase the flakiness. So according to Ayurveda, these are doshic connections, so that dryness we would say is more of a vata propensity to the skin, whereas the oiliness is more of a kapha skin. And so we really suggest doing this practice dependent upon what's going on with your skin. If you have more density to your skin, if you tend to hold weight or hold water, if you find that the skin gets clogged or blocked, if you don't have many rashes, and you might have really nice skin actually, because a lot of kapha skin is youthful and nice, but it's still a very thick skin and can tend to be oily, then dry brushing can be a wonderful daily practice in that way. If we have more of a kapha prakriti, more of a kapha constitution, that earth and water. And the way in which we do dry brushing, so this is the dry brush that we sell through Rasa Ayurveda, but you can also, so it's a glove, as you can see, it's jute, it's hemp, with a little bit of elastine in it, so it stretches. I feel like I'm showing a puppet show. So you can use something like this, or you can use, of course, one of those brushes. I don't have one here, but one of those brushes that might have like faux, it used to be horsehair or something, but faux. You can use one of those, but nothing too rough for the skin. It should be, there should be still a softness to it. Even the Udvartanam that's suggested in the text is a powder, but the powder still has a certain softness to it. So what are we going to do with this? So I'm not going to show these two practices today because it involves getting naked. So what you're going to do is, in your own space and your own time in nakedness, you're going to move with long strokes on the limbs, so both on the legs and the arms, working with long strokes, and you'll work up towards the heart. And then when you get to joints, you're going to go in round strokes. So long strokes and then round strokes on the joints. And then the rest of the body, you're going to work in round strokes, always moving towards the heart, round strokes. And try to also work in through the back, working everywhere in round strokes. With a dry brush, it's a little bit too much, oftentimes, especially for the face. So you might choose instead something that we use in Ayurveda, which is like the Udvartanam. It's like the powder scrub that we often use to clean the face, but even the body is called an uptan. But we'll talk about that. It's a powdered herbal mixture that you can use to clean. So we'll talk about that later when we talk about bathing. But using a glove like this, just gently, if you're going to go on the area of the neck or the collar, that area. Otherwise, round strokes, or rather long strokes, and then round strokes everywhere else on the body, moving towards the heart, so up and towards the heart. And of course, any sensitive areas, so around the genitals or around the breasts, we want to go really gently, of course. Actually, for some women, prenatally, however, I do suggest using this as a massage on the area of the breasts as we're preparing for breastfeeding. So I just want to say those kinds of things. But again, of course, it requires that you see an Ayurvedic practitioner or an Ayurvedic doctor during those times to really get the proper suggestions for yourself. So as a daily practice, it's more for those of us who feel that we have congestion, like a congested skin, we're more sluggish, we have more of a sort of slow, steady constitution. This is more a kapha constitution. If you do this daily in that way, you're going to feel that that mobility of this on the skin creates sort of an excitation. So it's excellent for those of us who feel like we're retaining water or retaining earth, the earth element, which leads to that kind of heaviness and density. It can feel like, oh, we're lightening everything up. Otherwise, for the rest of us, we might do this once or twice a week, or even just once a week. We might find that once a week is more than enough for us to open the skin, because really the skin being the largest organ in the body, so much of the ama, so much of the toxicity that's held in our systems can be released when we start to do this. Especially then what we can do is apply our oil and then have a shower. And what's going to happen is by scrubbing first, then applying our oil, it will absorb deeper, and then having a warm shower, it will drive the oil and the medicine of the oil even deeper. So either way, this is a wonderful way to cleanse and open the pores, to stimulate the lymph system, to stimulate all of the skin. But we just want to be aware of what kind of skin type we have and whether or not we want to be doing this daily. If you're not quite sure ever from these videos as to what would be the best sort of daily practice for you, then you can always reach out and contact me, and we can even set up a consultation to look more specifically at you, okay? So you feel really aligned in the way in which you're coming to your Dinacharya. Then the next practice. So the next practice is Abhyanga. As I've been doing the last days, I had this in hot water. So this is my handy mug that I use for so many different things. So putting hot water in here even boiling water from a kettle, and then putting your bottle inside to soak will allow the oil to get warm enough. The other option is to just run it under the tap, but that usually requires running the water for a long time. So I like this bathing method. What I don't suggest doing is putting the oil into a pan or something, or heating the oil directly. So this is an Abhyanga oil, which is a mixture that I formulated and we sell at Rasa Ayurveda. We have 4 different types of body oils, but you can make a body oil at home. You see, all the products that were formulated and we offer through Rasa came because after working clinically with individuals, I would either suggest to them to make it themselves or make it for them. But after some time, I really noticed that getting these high quality herbal infused oils with some of the traditional medicines in Ayurveda was, especially in an organic form, was quite difficult on the market. So that's where this arose from. So to make it at home, it depends again on your constitution. So what I would suggest is to go onto Rasa Ayurveda, rasa-ayurveda.com, and you can check out our education section, so some of the learning section, that shares about the 3 doshas, the different constitutions, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the quality of the skin also as they relate to those. Hi, namaste. So beautiful to see some of you this morning. And so in that way, you can see the different constitutions, the different skin types, and what oils we've used. So the different carrier oils, so the different base oils, and then also the different herbal oils and the different essential oils that are used accordingly. So we use different base oils, different herbal oils, different essential oils that will help to balance the elements of each one of the doshas. So if someone, for example, as I was sharing before, is more of a kapha dosha, more dense, there's more of a heaviness and earthiness, then we're going to use oils that are going to invigorate and stimulate. If someone's more of a pitta dosha, so with a pitta dosha, then they have more of a fire element, and in that way we're going to use oils that are going to bring more cooling, for example, to the body. And if someone's more of a vata dosha, which tends to be this more air and ether, which means they can be lighter in many ways and the skin can be a little bit drier or thinner, then we're going to use an oil that's denser. So an oil that's going to lead to them feeling more dense, more pacified in that way, more of a certain feeling of being grounded. So you'll see even the recipes, well, not the direct recipes, but you'll see the ingredients of each of these oils. And if you want to replicate it at home, you absolutely can, or get an idea of some of the base oils that are best for each of the doshas, and also the essential oils that are wonderful that you might add at home. So otherwise, the kind of just traditional oil that's often used in Ayurveda is sesame oil, a cold-pressed, unroasted sesame oil. But some of you are writing me, I can't find that. I smell like Vietnamese food, which is wonderful. But at some point, it's probably not the highest quality oil that you're able to get. So instead, you might use a cold-pressed sunflower oil, or even an olive oil, a coconut oil, a grapeseed oil. Those are all wonderful, but they do have different properties. You know, the coconut oil is a little bit more cooling, sunflower oil is a little more neutral, grapeseed oil, for example, is a little bit lighter. So they do have different qualities to them. But just using an oil on the body, a high quality cold pressed oil, and warming it up is already better than not doing this practice daily. So that's what I want to suggest after this mouthful, okay? So the oil I'm using, and that I use especially in the winter time, I use our Vata Abhyanga oil. I find for my skin, it's wonderful during the winter months to lock in moisture and to allow a grounding, calming, pacifying sort of action. In the summer, I use a pitta oil because I tend towards heat in the skin, and sometimes I'll get a small breakout, or, for example, just generally have some heat or rosiness, or my skin tends to burn a little bit more quickly, all those kinds of things, right? So because of that, I use our pitta balancing oil in the summer. So what are we doing with this? It's the same direction, it's the same movement as what we're doing with the dry brushing, with the Garshana. So those long strokes on the limbs, so on the arms and the legs, and round strokes on the rest of the body. So what I do is you're going to take this and take some into the hand, like such. And then basically you can start to apply it. So long strokes in and through, round strokes on the joints. And then no matter where you are doing this, you can work in the same way with round strokes through the body. And the nice thing about the Abhyanga is, of course, you can apply it to the neck, to the face, and even we talk also about Shiro Abhyanga or head Abhyanga, Pada Abhyanga, feet Abhyanga. So you can apply it to the head, you can apply it also to the feet, you can work throughout the whole body. And here's the trick. After you've applied this oil throughout the body, you want to leave it. So many of us, especially in the Western climate, are used to putting a moisturizer on after we shower. But actually the idea with Abhyanga is that we put it on before we shower and we leave it on for at least half an hour, if not an hour, and we let the oil soak in. So actually this morning I had already done Abhyanga. Then this is why I have this robe. I put the robe on and I allow it to absorb into the body. This might be during that time, might be the time that you sit for meditation or pranayama, might be the time you make breakfast, the time you're getting your kids ready for school, you're generally getting other things happening, whatever it might be. Or you put this on early on in your Dinacharya and then you do your other rituals and let it absorb. Then when the warm water of the shower touches the body, the warmth actually helps the oils and the medication of the oils, the herbs, to drive deeper into the body. So the warmth actually is a way, almost like a compress, of helping that oil to be absorbed by the skin. You see, when we shower our dry skin, we're stripping our skin every single day. So we're going to talk about bathing in the next couple days, but we're going to also talk about not using chemical soaps, etc., to just consistently keep stripping and then putting moisturizer on afterwards, right? Instead, the suggestion is to put Abhyanga on to gently wash when we go into the shower. So whether that's with something like a cast iron soap, you see many soaps traditionally were already made of oil, because oil has a cleansing effect. So even doing this daily is actually cleansing the skin to some degree. And it creates a protective barrier, not just from the shower, not just from the heat of the shower or just generally that drying effect that can happen, but a little bit of the oil is maintained on the body. So when you finish your shower, you just kind of pat yourself down. That oil is maintained. And then throughout the day, actually, it provides a protective barrier from pollutants. It provides a protective barrier from sun or from the various ways in which we can actually find that the skin can get affected and can age over time. So it provides that way that this organ can be protected and nourished. A beautiful thing to understand about Abhyanga is that it's sometimes also called snehana. Sneha, the word sneha has two meanings. It means oil, but it also means love. So snehana is to give oil or to give love. And actually when you start to do this practice, this is what I was talking about earlier, that many individuals feel like they've just self-loved. We start to wake up, for example, the hormone oxytocin with self-affection, with any type of affection, and especially at a time now when we're physical distancing. It's actually really, really important, and this has been increasing in our world in general, I would say, that we are more and more physically distanced, that when we start to give ourselves even this massage, what we're doing is we're really offering some affection to ourselves. We're opening our own hearts, we're touching our own hearts. That affection, really, as we've seen even through science and sociology, it's been recognized that individuals, a basic need is affection, is physical affection for us to survive and for us to thrive. So doing this daily helps you to thrive in that way. And you'll notice that you start to feel with the hormone oxytocin, you feel more calm, more at peace. You feel more trusting in your own sense of love. I mean love on the deepest level, as we outline it in the Vedas, prem, which is this unconditionality of love, like feeling unconditionally loved by life. And it's beautiful to think that, a practice that we might have thought of before as just a cosmetic practice of moisturizing the skin really is intended for these deeper reasons. To cocoon us, to remove toxins, remove ama from the body in the stimulation of the massage, but also to protect the skin, to nourish the skin with these various herbs, and also to nourish us with love. So if there is one daily ritual that I find I suggest consistently, it's this one, is Abhyanga. Now, just as I said with the dry brushing, for some of us, we might not do this daily. Although, as I said before, you can use different oils that balance the different doshas. Nevertheless, if your skin is already extremely oily or you find that it's very dense, that's when I was saying to do this one more often. So do the dry brushing a bit more often. So say you do it like 4 or 5 days a week if you have that more dense, oily skin. And then you might do your Abhyanga 2 or 3 times a week, right? 1, 2, maybe 3 times a week. So you want to think about it depending upon what's happening in your constitution and what's happening in your skin. There's so many other things that could be said about these rituals. You can always go on the Rasa Ayurveda website, rasa-ayurveda.com, to check out more information about these practices. There's a whole page on Dinacharya there, and you can always contact myself or contact us directly through the website or through these mediums as well if you want more information or more guidance on how to do these practices. So today really about that sense of touch, the air element, and opening our hearts in many ways. So have a beautiful rest of your day, and I hope you'll start to implement one or both of these into your daily routines. We'll meet in just a moment or two for meditation. Okay, namaste everyone. Bye.